And so we're going to try to group some of these things together instead of just going through in order. We might move some things around just a little bit so that we keep things together. First off, just dealing with the older and younger men and the older and younger women. We'll group all of these four categories together. How old was Timothy?
Probably if it was 20 to 30, somewhere in there.
Probably 20 to 30. Anybody have a different idea? We'll take 20 to 30 then. I'll accept that, but we don't really know. We assume that he's a fairly young individual because Paul had told him to let no one despise his youth. So he was obviously on the younger end of the lifespan, and a lot of people there within the congregation perhaps would have been older than him. But the idea of youth is kind of a relative thing. If I look around this group of people that's in here tonight, maybe I'll consider myself a youth. But whenever all the kids come in, then I'm one of the old people again. And so it's all just a relative thing. And so as we go through these things, when Paul is speaking to this young man in regards to his relationship, then he has certain individuals who will be older and certain individuals who will be younger. But as far as for each and every one of us, then we have to look at these individuals, whether they be older or younger, the same way that he's told to look at those individuals. Not a number, it is in relationship to ourselves. And so that's something that we need to keep in mind. People who are older than us we need to treat in a particular way, and people who are younger than us we need to treat in another particular way. So back in verse number 1, Paul tells Timothy how to act first off in regards to men that are older than him. King James Version uses the word elder. That's not in the sense of an individual who is an overseer. It's used in this particular verse in regards to age. And so a lot of translations will simply say something in regards to an older man instead of using that word elder. But Paul is giving Timothy advice on his interactions with gentlemen who are older than he is. Now, sir, is there a time to rebuke? Yes, there's a time to rebuke. He later tells Timothy all Scripture is inspired, is profitable for teaching, for reproof, for rebuke. There's a time for that. Of course, I think that if we use the Scripture appropriately, we approach people in a loving manner, and we allow that Scripture to rebuke that individual. And so certainly there is a time for that, but in regards to our relationships, we're supposed to try to be peaceable, and we need to interact with people in a particular way, even if those people might need some correction. And so there is a time to rebuke. That more or less is the word's job. But in regards to our relationships, beginning with these older gentlemen, the word in the King James Version is entreat. I'm supposed to entreat these older men. The word entreat, which is a very good word for Paul to use, for the translators to translate the original word into, means to beg or implore or to make an earnest request for something. And so the idea then is that if an individual older than, if Rocky is doing something, even though it would be hard to believe, if Rocky's doing something that he isn't supposed to, instead of jumping all over Rocky and attacking Rocky and rebuking Rocky, then I'm supposed to approach him in a more respectful way, and I'm supposed to entreat him. I'm supposed to earnestly speak with him, depending on the situation, beg him or try to urge him to do a particular thing. And so it's about my approach to Rocky more so than just the attitude of, or just the fact that I am trying to correct an individual. When I am to approach my father, it says that we're to treat these older men as fathers. If I am to approach my father correctly, then I should do that with respect and appreciation for everything that he's done for me in my life. And so that's the way I'm supposed to approach these older gentlemen in the church as well. second portion of verse number 1, he tells Timothy to view the younger men as brethren. A lot of translations will just use the word. The idea is that we're supposed to look at them the same way that we do a brother. And we need to keep in our minds the context that it fits in. It's still the beginning portion of verse number 1, rebuke not an elder, can go along with all these other individuals as well. Rebuke not a younger man, rebuke not an older woman, rebuke not a younger woman, but treat them as, is the way that is laid out in our language and in their language. And so we keep that in mind with each of these different categories of individual. Neither are we to rebuke a younger man, but we are to entreat him the same way that we would a brother. A younger brother who may not know as much as we do, but we want to help him out. We're trying to help him in this particular situation. Maybe if, of course, I got 3 boys, and I don't say this a lot, even though I might need to more than I should, but brothers are not bosses. One is not superior to the other unless I say I'm going to leave Eli in charge. Then it changes a little bit, but we're supposed to view these younger men the same way that we would a brother. Not their boss. We are here. We're trying to help because we love them and we want to help out. Verse number 2 gets into women, the older women. Again, King James Version, the word elder is used again. The elder women. We are not to reprove them, or rebuke them rather. And the same is true. It's not saying that we shouldn't correct any of these individuals. Certainly we are, but I mean, think about your mom. Do you talk to your mom, your mother, the same way that you do to your children? You're trying to correct your children, you talk to them differently than if your mom does something maybe she shouldn't have. The same way it is with your father. And it's more, all of these relationships, we look at individuals who are younger than we are, and we're treating them maybe with more of a sense of equality than we might naturally do. And then we have older individuals, and we're treating all of them with a sense of respect that we should. Second portion of verse 2 deals with the younger sisters, younger women, to treat them as sisters, and it adds to that the clause with all purity. It's the same concepts. Entreating versus rebuking, all those things are in play. We're supposed to look at these younger women, no matter how old we are, no matter how old they are. If they're younger than us, we're supposed to look at her the same way we would sister, like our little sister. And the phrase "with all purity" is added on, and I assume that has to do especially with Timothy being a man, being a preacher, being a young man and preacher. That he's supposed to view those younger women with all purity, the same way that he would his sister, free from any of this, romantic motivation or anything like that. You're supposed to have this pure mindset towards that individual. So that's these relationships in regards to individuals that are older than us and individuals that are younger with us, verses 13 through 15. He gets into several different things regarding widows in general, just anyone who's a woman whose husband has died. And we would all probably understand that certainly there have been cultural changes since the time that this was written, and a woman's ability today to provide for her own needs is certainly different than it was then, and those things can be taken into consideration, but the principles remain the same. We have older widows who don't have the ability to provide for their own well-being. Really at this time, the older or the younger neither have much ability to provide for their own well-being in that particular culture at that time, but especially we have the older ladies who don't have the ability to provide. And within these verses, they're trying to live as good Christian ladies ought to live. And since that being the case, that they have no spouse and they're older, advanced in years, then they could go without the things that they need to have in life. And so the church is supposed to take up the slack and provide for those ladies. Today, an older lady can find employment. Today we have retirement, we have other government aids and all sorts of things that just because a lady's not married doesn't mean she doesn't have the ability to provide for herself. But if those things are failing, if we do have a widow in our congregation or even outside of the church in the area, then that's one of the things that the church has an obligation to try to take care of those women. And Paul's clarifying to Timothy, who really qualifies for that assistance from the church, and certainly these older ladies who don't have the ability to provide for themselves and who are trying to live Christian lives, and they fit into this category of individuals who should receive assistance from the church. In this day and time, when Paul is writing, then the younger ladies have at least one advantage that the older ladies, or some of them, may not have, and that's simply the more opportunity to remarry. Of course, there are dangers that Paul presents, and there are dangers in putting this young lady into the number, as he phrases it, to be taken care of. And one of those dangers is that there's an opportunity for them to kind of take care of or take advantage of the system. Is kind of the way that we would put it. That we don't need to put a younger lady on the list because she has opportunity to remarry, and if she's being taken care of, then she might not feel the need to take advantage of that opportunity, and might just begin to take advantage of the church and begin to live a sinful lifestyle and things such as that. And with the older ladies and the younger ladies alike, there are things that need to be considered. Verse number 5 and following kind of suggests some requirements that she needs to have. She needs to be involved, more or less. If she's going to be supported by the church, then she needs to be involved with the church in more ways than one. Verse number 4 tells us not to add any woman to that number who has children. Why should we not add that woman to the number? Because they're supposed to be taking care of her. Kind of being an enabler. If we start providing for her, then those children are going to neglect their responsibility to take care of their mother. Not only children, but also what? Nephews.
Cousins too,
I guess it makes
Nieces, grandchildren instead of nephews.
grandchildren. If she has, I think, I didn't really go into this study. Well, I might be wasting a little bit of time. But I think if we actually go back and look at that original language, more or less, Aunt Sandra, I'm her nephew. And so technically she's not a widow indeed. Because even if she didn't have children, she's got me. And it's my responsibility to take care of her. And that goes beyond both of those original words with children and nephews, goes beyond just these children that she has into grandchildren, and just beyond her sons and daughters, or her sisters and brothers' children, on beyond that as well. If they have family, then it is the family's responsibility to take care of those individuals. Anybody in this room, if we have a widow in our family whose needs are not being met, it's our responsibility to take care of her. It's not the church's responsibility. These widows indeed are individuals who have no family. And in that situation, she has nobody to provide for her, and it's the church's responsibility then to step in. That was all a side note. But verse 8 kind of backs that verse up. The fact that the children and nephews and nieces and whoever it is that has the opportunity, that it's our responsibility. If we refuse to provide for individuals, especially those in our own house, then we are worse than, I have unbeliever written here, it's not what it says in King James, it says infidel. Worse than infidel, we have denied the faith, our system of faith. We've denied Christianity. It's a fundamental aspect. Foundation stone of Christianity is our providing need and help and assistance to other individuals, especially those of our own house. Paul moves from widows over into elders. Of course, back in chapter 3, he tells Timothy of the qualifications one must have in order to become an elder. Now he focuses his attention more on how we are to behave towards elders, and that's the proper use of the word, not just older gentlemen, but individuals who are overseeing the work of an elder. Verses 17 and 18 deal with the idea that is presented here called double honor. In regards to those who serve as elders, I've heard many people, especially taking into consideration verse number 18, say that this is in regards to or supports the idea of financially supporting elders, and I've never really found any reason not to believe otherwise. Just got done earlier 3 minutes ago talking about how the church is to support financially, take care of these individuals who are widows. He moves straight into elders, speaks of this double honor, speaks of not muzzling the ox. The whole idea being when the ox is working, treading out the corn, that he should be allowed to eat some of that corn, because he's doing this work. So I've never found any reason not to believe that that's not what Paul is referring to. We have these individuals, these men, who lots of times we think of individuals who are elders as they've reached a certain age in their life. In our culture, most of the time when they get to that age, they're what? Retired. I was really glad nobody said old. They're retired. That most of the time we think of, well, this man is this age and he's retired and he doesn't have a full-time job and he doesn't have kids in the house and he doesn't have all these responsibilities and he's got him a comfortable nest egg, and we think all of these things just because of a lot of the individuals that we've had as elders in the past, and none of those things are necessarily true. Here's an individual who's doing the work of an elder, the work that every elder should do, and then perhaps he's doing a good job at ruling. Not only is he doing a good job of watching out for the congregation and their spiritual well-being, but then maybe he's a preacher too. Or he's a teacher as well. He devotes a lot of time on top of his overseeing the spiritual well-being of the congregation, and he is involving himself in the word and doctrine and teaching and evangelism and things such as that. He's really doing two jobs, and so he may not have time to pick up a third job just in order to pay those bills. And so as the church, who would be, if we had elders, benefiting from their spiritual oversight, and they're doing a good job at that, understanding that they have financial burdens should help provide for some of those financial burdens. He not only addresses that, but he also addresses the idea of someone bringing accusations against an elder. And I think it's very important for us to keep in mind, if we ever were to find ourselves in this situation, where someone brings an accusation against an elder, number one is that this elder has already done what in order for him to be appointed as an elder? He's proven himself. If he hadn't proven himself, then we shouldn't have ever appointed him as an elder. He's proven himself blameless, somebody who takes care of mistakes that they've made in their life, and he's shown himself to have a very reputable character. In all of these things, and he's shown himself to be trying to live a faithful Christian life. And so that's something that if one were to bring an accusation against an elder, then we should keep those things in mind to begin with, and not just accept hearsay as if it were the truth. If he wasn't a sound Christian to begin with, we didn't know those things, then we never should have ordained him as an elder. And so because of his credibility, we should sometimes give him the benefit of the doubt until we can find things out for certain. If 2 or 3 people start coming and saying the same thing, then we have to think, well, maybe we should investigate this farther. And the second thing that I wanted to say kind of along those same lines is that really this is written, of course, first off to Timothy, who was the preacher, the evangelist here at this particular congregation at that time. And so my position, we have an eldership and Dad comes up and says, oh, Elder Jackson, I saw him down the road going ... Then I shouldn't, as the preacher, say, well, I'm going to do something about that. But then when Dad and Rocky and Matt and Ashley and Tiffany and they all start coming and saying, I saw Elder Jackson, well then that's a different situation. And so then there's a time certainly that we have to start believing the things that might be said, need to investigate those things. My understanding, verse number 20 is still in that same elder conversation. It could very well be in regards to everybody in general. My understanding is that it's still in regards to that conversation that he's having about the elders, and Paul's words to Timothy, in this situation, his words to the preacher, if an elder is guilty, don't try to cover that up, don't try to sweep it under the rug, but that needs to be addressed publicly. And because of the word saying that it needs to be addressed in front of all, it needs to be addressed publicly right away, in contrast to some of the things that Jesus says about going to a brother one-on-one and then bringing someone else before. The need to address this publicly in front of all would suggest that this individual is a public figure, such as that elder. And since it is an elder, that it needs to be addressed publicly so that everyone is aware of the situation. Just the cost of being a leader, double standard, if you will. But he concludes the chapter by hitting on a couple. I said it's pretty much all about our relationships, but then there's a few various things at the end. Number 1, verse number 21. These guidelines that I've just given you, Paul says, then you need to apply them without showing any bit of partiality. You don't treat this particular widow differently just because she is so-and-so. You don't treat this particular elder differently just because he's a successful businessman, or this young lady different just because of who her daddy is. You treat every younger man this way, every older man this way, every younger woman, older woman, widow, elder, and so forth. He gives Timothy what we understand to certainly be a little bit of medical advice. In verse number 23, tells him not to drink water. New King James, a lot of other translations add the word only, not just water, but also to drink a little wine for his stomach's sake, his often infirmities. I took the time today just to look up those original words, because I just want everybody to understand we're on the same page. Because when you read through this and you think about some very similar words that are used within Scripture, such as, we have the word stomach here used. Other verses in the Bible speaks about individuals whose gods were their bellies, and what's suggested by that is that their gods were their appetites. And then we have other verses that deal with, our heads, our bowels, as in the things that we feel deep inside. And just so that we're all on the same page, this word that is used here, stomach, is a very good word for us to know. It has to do with your stomach. It's the only time that this particular word is used in Scripture, and it was not a word that was ever used, maybe not ever, it's not a good word, was not used regularly in a figurative sense. When individuals use this word, they were talking about your stomach. And so he's being told to drink this little bit of wine for his stomach's sake. If either of those other things could be true, then he could be telling Timothy to drink a little bit of wine just because he has an appetite for wine, or drink a little wine just because it makes him feel better. But none of those things are true. That's not what Paul is saying. Paul is giving him what we would call medical advice because of his infirmities, because of some sort of ailment that he has, then this is a solution that he needs to take for those particular things. Then he ends with the two verses in regards to sin and good works. Sometimes, either one of those things. Sometimes they are evident, sometimes we see them on display in people's lives. Other times they are hidden, but of course eventually they will be known. Alright, anybody have anything else they want to add before we get on into questions?
I just might add back in verse 10 where he talks about the good works of the widow indeed. One of them was washing the saints' feet. That's not a church ordinance, even though I have heard some churches that practice that. But that was a necessary act of hospitality back then, but it no longer exists. But now the humility that it represents is in the New Testament.
Well, it certainly was an act of hospitality, a custom at that particular time. Of course, Jesus washing feet and so forth. I'm glad that you brought that up because that was one of my trick questions I was trying to trick everybody with later. Now we all know the answer to that question because I thought, it doesn't really fit with everything else because it's not something that we necessarily do today. But anybody have anything else they want to add? All right, we'll get into some questions. I do have the ones from chapter 5. I had time to make slides for them. I didn't end up having time to, my clicker's not working. Oh, I did have slides. Are you going to do it, or? Okay. Alright, question number 1. Paul tells Timothy not to do what to an elder in 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 1? Is it A, receive accusation against him, B, correct him, or C, rebuke him? It is C, rebuke. Alright, question number 2. Anyone who does not provide for their own has denied the faith and is worse than whom? A, an unbeliever, B, an infidel, C, a no good scoundrel. It's B, an infidel in King James Version. Probably about every other translation that we might use would use the word unbeliever. Alright, question number 3. In 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 17, who should be counted worthy of double honor? A, elders who rule and teach. B, widows who are widows indeed. C, elders who rule well. Who said C? Who said C? It's C. Good job. It is C. Elders who rule well are to be considered worthy of double honor, especially those who labor in word and doctrine. But the elder who rules well is worthy of that double honor. Question number 4, 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 14. What did Paul will for the younger women? A, they provide for themselves. B, they marry. Or C, they be provided for. It is B, they marry. Number 5, who did Paul tell Timothy he should lay hands on suddenly in 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 22? A, no man. B, those wishing to receive the Spirit. Or C, anyone trying to steal from the church. It's A, no man. 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 24. What goes before some men to judgment? A, their deeds. B, their sins. Or C, their works.
B.
It is B, their sins. 7, who was supposed to be viewed with all purity? A, widows. B, elder women. Or C, younger women. C, younger women. 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 9. What was the minimum age for a widow to be taken into the number? Is it A, 29, B, 60, or C, 40? It was B, 60. How many is that? 60. Score is 20. 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 4. A woman was not a widow indeed if she had children or what? A, income. B, living parents. Or C, nephews. C, nephews. Number 10. Paul charged Timothy to observe these things before God, the Lord Jesus Christ, and whom? A, the saints, B, the elect angels, or C, the heavenly host? Let's B, the elect angels. 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 25, likewise, also the good works of some are manifest, A, at the judgment, B, and evident, or C, beforehand. C, beforehand. Timothy was told to drink little wine for his stomach's sake and for what? A, his often infirmities, B, its social benefits, or C, his stress after a hard day. A, his often infirmities. Alright, we'll just stop right there as they're coming in. Thank you very much. We'll just save all these other questions for a later date.
You know, Caleb, it says, elsewhere where we're supposed to take care of the widows and orphans in their affliction, but of course that would be a younger, you know, women who are 60 years of old should no longer have children. Widows and children. But that's not adding to what's called the number. It's just helping like you did.
It looks like y'all brought cookies for everybody. Is that it? Okay. Alright, if y'all want to go ahead and turn number 529. We will we'll be singing that song, number 529, in just a minute. So let me tell you what I feel bad about. Of course, had lessons on Sunday about helping and so forth. Of course, we were up in Clarksville last week, got kicked out actually last Thursday, without finishing up what we were doing. And so we kind of felt bad about that. So me and the boys, there were 8 of us total, went back up on Monday. Michael went with us. And I tell you what I felt really bad about was Tuesday morning when we got up there. I mean, I had guys with me who had taken off work to go, and guys who had to have conversations with their wives, whose wives might not have really wanted them to leave the house at that particular time and go to Clarksville. And so, you know, they really sacrificed in order to get to go. We got there Tuesday morning, and it seemed like everything was done. Between Thursday and Tuesday, the town had completely changed. I think a lot of people from the Army base had come out and helped clean up, and there were insurance contractors, and there had just been a lot of things that got done. I felt bad for getting everybody over there, and then there not being really a lot of work for everybody to do. But at the same time, I felt good to see that so much had gotten done. That so many people had got the help that they needed, even though we didn't get to do a lot, did a little. And I was proud of those guys who sacrificed it so that they could have the opportunity to go over there. And kind of the big picture is that it didn't really matter how much you did, and it certainly didn't matter how much credit you got for doing it. There at the end of 1 Timothy chapter 5, Paul tells Timothy about both sin and good works. Some of the things that we do, whether it be sinful things or good things, are evident to all. some of the things we do are seen by everyone. If we commit mass murder, or if we rescue some infant from a flaming building, then we'll receive mainstream attention, and our sin or our good works will become evident to all. We help our neighbor with some chores, or we cheat on a test, then we may not receive any attention. Nobody else may ever know of any of those things. 1,000 millions of little things that we do in our life may never receive attention from anyone else. But Paul makes it clear that God, well, he sees all those things. God knows. We may never have done any one spectacularly good thing in our life, but God has noticed all those little things. And we hope he does, and we expect him to. But then on the other side, even though we may have never done some spectacularly evil thing in our life, we kind of almost expect God to overlook all of those little bad things that we have done. And Paul tells us that that's simply not the case. That all have sinned, all have fallen short. And so this evening, even if you've never done some spectacularly evil thing in your life, it doesn't mean that you haven't done something that would have costed you your soul. And so if you have never done what you need to do in order to receive salvation and obeying the gospel, then why not do that tonight? Why not come and ask for the prayers of the church if you need that by just responding as we stand and sing.
Out of my bondage, sorrow and night, Jesus I come, Jesus I come, into thy freedom majesty and might, Jesus I come to thee, out of my sickness into thy help, out of my wound and into thy well, out of my sin and into thyself, Jesus I come to thee, out of the fear and dread of the tomb, Jesus I come, Jesus I come, into the joy and light of thy home, Jesus I come to thee, out of the depths of ruin untold, into the peace of thy sheltering fold, ever thy glorious face to behold, Jesus I come to thee. Be seated, please.
Good evening. Before we dismiss, I have just a few short announcements. First, let me say it's good to see everyone tonight, and I hope everyone has been encouraged by our Bible study, and I hope all of you can come back and be with us Sunday morning at 9 a.m. for Bible study, and then at 10 for worship service. And I just hope all of you could be here at that time. As for our sick, I only have one exception to those listed in the bulletin. I failed to announce Sunday that Brother Gerald would be having some tests Monday. And he did have some tests, and he's waiting results on one of the tests, and then he also had a brain scan, and that was good. I think the only problem they had there, they had trouble finding the brain, but other than that, he's fine. And we hope he gets a good report. We're sorry to make these announcements. Our deepest sympathies go out to Mr. Joe Ray Jones, who passed away today. He was aged 99. Don't have any information on arrangements. Also, if you notice, Sister Billy Brown is not here tonight. Her sister, Anna Lee Long, up in Indiana, passed away, and I'm sure that's where she's at this time. Also, our deepest sympathies go out to the family of Richard R. Roberts. He was a longtime member here at the church, and most of us know him as Dickie. He's Brother Matt's uncle. Certainly he will be missed. His funeral will be Friday, Friday the 22nd at 12 p.m. And let's certainly remember all these families in our prayers. The Bible Bowl will be January the 6th, covering 1 Timothy as our kids have been preparing. I think there is still a list down here for those who would like a t-shirt for the Bible Bowl or the CYC. And I guess that's all the announcements I have tonight. Now, if any of you are wondering how long it'll be to Christmas, I'm sure Case Carr can tell you. So just check with him after services. 5 days. I knew he could tell you. Okay. After Brother Rocky leads us in a closing song, we'll ask Brother John West to lead our closing prayer.
Number 979 be a closing song. Number 979. The longer I serve him. We had 84 present this afternoon. Let us stand, please. Since I started for the kingdom